Hey everybody, it's your old pal Chuck, and I'm back with another review. And today we're taking a look at the new Transformers Cyberverse series, Bumblebee Cyberverse Adventures. So it's Transformers Cyberverse, uh, Bumblebee Cyberverse Adventures. Or is it just now Transformers Bumblebee Cyberverse Adventures? I don't know. Well, it's the Cyberverse line. These are two new Warrior class figures. This is Cybertron Starscream, or just really called Starscream, and a completely new character named Hammerbyte. I got these figures off of eBay, but they are showing up at various retail locations in brick and mortar around the country. I have no idea if or when they will show up at online retailers such as Big Bad Toy Store or Amazon.com. As with the previous Warrior class figures, these robots do feature some sort of gimmick to them. And in both cases, a little more so with Starscream, these don't affect the nature of the robot or the transformation, which was a major complaint with Warrior class figures from the last several waves of Cyberverse figures. So, we'll pause and we'll take a look at each figure individually, starting off with Starscream. There are some absolute truths in life. Death, taxes, water's wet, and a Transformers line will have Starscream at some point. And if it's a kid-friendly, focused line, it'll have multiple Starscreams at some point, because ultimately, much like with G.I. Joe, Starscream is one of those core characters that retailers recognize and the brand has been built around. You know, there's like 36 years of history where Starscream has been involved. Let me start off by saying this version of Starscream is much better than the original Warrior class version. Although even then, I didn't have much of an issue with it once you learned how to lock the waist in place. Now, some of you are going to have problems with Starscream because as I turn it around, the legs are completely hollow. Now, I think part of that is due to the transformation, and it's also due to the reduced price point. We can discuss that multiple times. Two things to note about Starscream. Number one, the figure comes seated in its package. It's like sitting on a throne or something, and the nose cone is down along the back. That I think is to save the weapon gimmick, which is once you bring the nose cone up into this position, if you were to continue pushing it forward into that red section right here behind the head, you would trigger its Starseeker missile gimmick, which is where these clear-colored missile, like almost nullish ray type of projectiles pop up, and I guess is like an attack feature. To reset, push them down. I will mention that on the right side of the figure, which is your left watching the video, this one does have an issue clipping down in place and staying down. And that is a little unfortunate, as one of the things that plagued earlier waves of Warrior class figures were problematic gimmicks that oftentimes didn't work because they relied too much on precision molding and tooling, which in a mass-produced toy item just doesn't happen. To start the transformation, what you want to do is straighten the arms out. Now, for some reason, the elbows do lock into place. I think that's kind of cool. And you want to bring them down. Now, one thing that's not really shown in the instructions is there is a groove here that fits into a slot in the forearm. So you want to make sure with Starscream that's all, pegged in, squared away. You make sure you have everything lined up. There you go. It's basically just a swivel here in the shoulder and a hinge at the elbow. There are bowl joints at the hips, which we're going to take a look at in a second as we turn the figure over and bring the nose cone back forward. The instructions show it sitting up, but I noticed that during the movements of transformation, it will just flip forward. That's perfectly fine. What you want to do now is bring the legs all the way back and around over his shoulder, and those will sort of friction into place. Make sure you have them even, and that will form the rear of the jet. Go ahead, bring the cockpit down into position, just like so, and then come around the sides and flip out the front of the wings. So we're getting a more of a sort of quasi Tetrajet, futuristic jet type of look. Personally, I and a lot of other people have felt, looking at this figure, feel it looks a lot like the Vic Viper from the old Gradius games made by Konami. I recently heard that the gentleman who created the infamous Konami code passed away, and I know that in Gradius it used that quite often, so I think it's a nice little nod that we're taking a look at a figure that looks like the Vic Viper. Other than that, the coloring is, your basic Starscream. I do like the use of the metallic blue here, and it's a swooshable jet. I always felt that Transformer designers and a lot of the transforming mecha designers and, Gundam designers and what have you had to be heavily influenced by the 80s space shooter genre and vice versa, because a lot of those games featured mechs and ships and enemies that looked a lot like the giant robots we grew up with. So that's about it for Starscream. So we'll pause and take a look at Hammerbyte. Okay, and here's Hammerbyte. Surprisingly, it turns into a hammerhead shark, but it is an Autobot. I do believe this is a character who will feature in the final season of Transformers Cyberverse, which I've seen some of the episodes, but the rest haven't been put up on demand yet, so I'm not really too familiar with the character. Although the brief one-line bio on the back says it's the guardian of the Argon Sea. Okay. As you can see, the left arm, or on the right here if you're watching the video, is slightly ajar. No, that is not for me handling the figure or some mishandling on my part. That's actually how you trigger the gimmick, which if you were to bring his arm down flush to the side, triggers the hammerhead to flip over top, which would be kind of cool, except for the fact that at the same time that hammerhead is coming up, the shark teeth around the front of its chest here should spring up as well, forming a some sort of hammerhead attack. There's nothing I can do. It just looks like that hook right there is just not working. It's not tripping. This is a retail release figure. This is not like an early sample, so I don't know if what can be done about it. I don't know if this is a issue with all of them, but it is a little disappointing that this new Warrior class figure, which by the way features ball-jointed shoulders, elbows, hips, and hinged knees, so it's rather articulated, unlike the earlier Warrior figures, still has that gimmick problem. I mean, the big part is the head comes over, so I guess that's good. To start the transformation, what you want to do is try not to trigger the gimmick and rotate the fins here on the side down. Make sure the arms are as straight as you can get them without tripping the gimmick. Just rotate it around. They are a little tight there. Bring the arms forward and then bring them up at the shoulder, which will not trigger the gimmick, and then rotate them, the forearms out to the side so the elbows are pointing up and these little tabs here are facing down. Next, what you want to do is come down to the legs here, flip out what will be the shark tail, and peg the legs together. You might want to come around a couple different ways, make sure everything pegs together nicely like that. Next, what you're going to do while you have the figure from the rear is you're going to fold the legs up at the hip. There are some tabs here on the back of the knees, which will sort of like friction into place like along the, back of the waist of the figure. Next, what you'll do is grab this whole torso section, unpeg it, bring it down and around, and those tabs on the forearm will peg into slots right above the leg. This one arm, I do have a little bit of issue with sometimes. Just get it in there. They do like to pop up, but once you have everything situated, it should be fine. So we're just about done. Come around the side here of the shark and flip up the panels from the rear here and peg them into the side, closing everything up. And there you have the robotic hammerhead shark mode with thrusters on the side so I can fly around. I do like, if you notice, there is this natural curve to the shark, which I think is kind of cool. That's not always easy to work into a transformation, but it is there. So, yeah. Oh, and I almost forgot. There is a second shark head, jaw, right underneath the head, so you can bring that down. Jabba jabba. So, yeah. It's a cool looking figure. I wish the gimmick worked a little bit better, but we'll pause and I'll come back with my final thoughts. So ultimately, both figures are good. They're not great, but they're good. They are better than previous Warrior class figures that we've gotten, but unfortunately they still, at least the ones I have, suffer from the same issues with transformation, the spring-loaded gimmicks and things of that nature. Now, your copies may be perfectly fine, and that's good. I'm sure some of you are quite unhappy with Starscream's hollow legs, but I think the overall spacecraft mode more than makes up for it as a fun little thing to swoosh around. Interestingly enough, Starscream takes 5 steps to transform, and Hammerbyte takes about 9. So it is a more, if you're looking for a more involved figure, I would go with Hammerbyte. And I just want to check something here. Oh, you know, I actually forgot one of the transformation steps for Starscream. You got to rotate his head around. Oopsies. That's actually step 1. And it is a tight joint there. Also probably doesn't help that I'm doing it, you know, halfway smash way, but that is a tight swivel there. But okay, I mean, no real big difference, but I just want to make sure I point that out for you. So ultimately, I don't think these should be first round purchases in the Cyberverse line, especially with the new deluxe class out there. But they are worth a pickup. If I had to recommend one, I kind of want to go with Hammerbyte, but I just really like that Starscream jet mode. Ultimately, it'd be up to you. I think depending on color, style, if you want a completely new figure, then definitely Hammerbyte. But I've basically given you all the information I can. These are good figures, not great, and I wouldn't pick them up if I needed to complete Macadam or wanted those deluxe class figures, who I think are far better representations of the animation designs. But to be honest, after the initial 8, I don't know if they're going to continue that line, since season 3 of Cyberverse is it. As I said in the beginning, I got these figures off of eBay, and if you like seeing me review figures, you know, right when they hit retail or a little early, please consider joining my Patreon. I only ask for $1 a month. No special gimmicks, no thrills, but you help keep this channel going. I notice a lot of you aren't choosing the Patreon option, which is fine. If you enjoy these videos, make sure to subscribe and actually hit the like button. Apparently now the algorithms with YouTube have switched again, where the video interactions, like commenting, stuff like that, are much more important. And lately you guys have been really helping this channel move along. I've been doing a lot better than I have, and I really do appreciate that. So continue enjoying these videos. For Starscream and Hammerbyte, we will see you next time.